In 1968, as the world's shipping lanes hummed with post-trade war, a Taiwanese entrepreneur named Chang Yong-fa bought a single second-hand vessel and pointed it at the open ocean. He had no fleet, no terminals, no leverage. What he had was a conviction that precision logistics could conquer distance itself. Over 2 decades, that single ship became Evergreen Marine Corporation, one of the largest container shipping lines on Earth, with networks spanning every major port. Then, Evergreen Marine Corporation established EVA Air in 1989, which began flying in 1991. In Q1 2026, EVA Air reported its highest ever first quarter net profit, 8.2 billion new Taiwan dollars, roughly $257.7 million US dollars, with net profit surging 39.4%. EVA Air has no real mainland China network. It serves more than 60 destinations. It has no dominant hub feeding its long-haul flights. So, how does a carrier out-earn one of the region's largest players? Who is that player? Cathay Pacific, whose hub, Hong Kong International Airport, is located less than 500 kilometers from Taipei International. Cathay's Pacific lineage runs deep into colonial Hong Kong, backed by the British Swire Group. It operated for decades with a near monopoly on premium travel out of one of the world's great trading cities. The model was textbook: funnel passengers from across the globe into Hong Kong International Airport, aggregate them, redistribute them outward on massive widebodies. But to fill a Boeing 777-300ER or an Airbus A350-1000 on a trunk route, you need passengers from many origins, consolidated in one place. Cathay built exactly that. Through the acquisition of Dragon Air, it locked it in the mainland Chinese feeder market via Hong Kong, becoming the undisputed gateway from the outside world to Greater China. A passenger flying from a secondary Asian city to London didn't fly direct. They flew to Hong Kong, then onward. Cathay captured them because they had no alternative. This created an existential problem for any Taiwanese carrier. Because of cross-strait political tensions, EVA Air was barred for decades from direct flights to mainland China. That meant no Chinese feeder traffic. None. The single richest pool of connecting passengers in Asia was simply off-limits. By every conventional measure, EVA Air should have been a permanent second-tier player, locked out of the feed that made hub carriers profitable. China Airlines, EVA's larger Taiwanese rival, accepted these constraints. The Gulf carriers and Asian carriers like Singapore Airlines turned their geography and geopolitics into an advantage, capturing travelers who had no choice but to stop somewhere. EVA Air had no such geography to exploit, so it built something else. Then, in December 1992, EVA Air attempted a partial answer. It launched non-stop service between Taipei and Los Angeles, entering the US market directly, rather than feeding traffic through someone else's hub. The strategy was audacious. Instead of consolidating mainland feed, EVA Air would use what aviation calls modified Sixth Freedom rights, connecting North American cities to Southeast Asia through Taipei as a transit node. Passengers from Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles would route through Taipei to reach Bangkok, Singapore, Manila, and Ho Chi Minh City, if the transit was seamless enough. But the thing is, raw connectivity alone wasn't enough to beat an entrenched giant like Cathay. EVA needed a weapon that addressed the actual passenger, not just the map. That same year, in 1992, EVA Air made a decision that would define its competitive position for the next 3 decades. It introduced something that didn't exist anywhere in the world: a cabin between economy and business with a 38-inch seat pitch. The world now calls it premium economy. It was viewed at the time as a risky experiment, an unproven middle tier for passengers who wanted more than economy, but couldn't justify business class fares. That experiment became the most lucrative segment of the modern long-haul widebody on a per-square-foot basis. EVA Air had invented the most profitable per-square-foot real estate in the sky, But inventing a cabin class wasn't the same as building an entire competitive architecture around it. That would take decades of disciplined execution. What EVA Air built across the Pacific represents one of the most deliberately contrarian network strategies in modern aviation. A classic hub carrier optimizes for one thing: consolidating the maximum feed into one airport. Cathay Pacific perfected this, drawing mainland China and regional traffic into Hong Kong. EVA Air did the opposite. It built a fluid, almost point-to-point premium network mesh, drawing traffic from many North American gateways and flowing it directly down into Southeast Asia via Taipei. By spreading traffic across many origin-destination pairs, EVA Air reduces dependence on any single market. By reducing that dependence, it reduces systemic risk. By reducing risk, it protects its yields. EVA Air now operates 94 flights per week from North America to Taipei, drawing feed from Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Houston, Toronto, Vancouver, and other cities in Canada and the US. Rather than forcing all traffic into massive capacity banks, EVA uses right-sized widebodies, the Boeing 7879 and 787-10, to serve this diverse array of city pairs efficiently. But the strategy extends far beyond network maps, because that's the obvious part. The real weapon is yield protection. EVA Air's fourth-generation premium economy, launched in 2025 on the 7879, features an industry-leading 42-inch seat pitch in a 232 configuration. It expanded the original 38-inch pitch to a full 42 inches. Premium economy occupies relatively little floor space compared to fully flat business pods, yet generates some of the highest revenue margins per square foot on the entire aircraft. EVA Air invented this category and now dominates its most profitable expression. The carrier has effectively become a bespoke trans-Pacific machine, purpose-built for the middle market that hub carriers underserve. But before EVA Air's strategy could fully prove itself, it needed validation that no Taiwanese carrier had achieved at this scale. Proof that point-to-point premium flying could out-earn the mega hub, even in cargo. Because EVA Air operates a heavy frequency of long-haul passenger flights across the Pacific, the belly cargo capacity of those flights generates enormous supplementary revenue. In Q1 2026, EVA Air generated 13.2 billion new Taiwan dollars in cargo revenue, up to 4.1% year-on-year. EVA Air's cargo isn't fast fashion or low-margin e-commerce, it's high-value semiconductors and other cargo flowing out of Taiwan, the beating heart of global chip manufacturing. These were not theoretical advantages, they were measurable outcomes. Compare this to Cathay Pacific. While highly successful in cargo, Cathay leans heavily on e-commerce out of the Greater Bay Area, exposed to shifting US tariff policy. EVA Air sits on top of the most valuable cargo on Earth, carried on the bellies of premium passenger flights. The passenger network and the high-value cargo network reinforce each other perfectly. Consider the mathematics of the hub model that Cathay perfected. To justify a 777-300ER or an A350-1000 on a trunk route, you need to fill 350 to 400 seats from consolidated feeder traffic. That means you depend on the hub functioning, the feed arriving, and the connections holding. Every passenger represents a chain of dependencies, stretching back through the entire network. When Hong Kong shut down during the extended COVID-19 closures, that entire chain snapped. Competitors filled the void. Cathay spent years rebuilding what the hub model made fragile. To win it back, Cathay expanded capacity aggressively after the pandemic. The result? Passenger yields dropped 10.3% in 2025. The airline was forced to discount heavily to fill the seats its scale demanded. This seems irrational, depending on how you look at it. Effectively, scale became a liability the moment demand wavered. EVA Air's logic is strategic rather than operational. You see, EVA Air doesn't attempt to replace the mega hub model. Cathay Pacific will still carry millions through Hong Kong. It'll still dominate Greater China connectivity. Cathay serves passengers who want maximum global reach through one network, not just premium leisure travelers. I'm talking corporate accounts, mainland feed, and the entire connecting middle market as well. What EVA Air does is create a new layer above and beside that model, a premium, almost point-to-point experience for travelers willing to pay to trade connections for convenience and quality. For the passenger flying from San Francisco to Singapore, EVA offers something Cathay consistently cannot match. The premium positioning is deliberate. By dominating the high-margin middle market, EVA Air protects itself from the brutal price wars in standard economy and the volatility of corporate business travel. The passenger paying for EVA isn't just paying for transport, they're paying for reliability, for the premium seat, the amenities, and the premium cabin service. This premium layer sits atop a carefully designed architecture that most observers miss entirely. The Hello Kitty Jet program, a partnership with Sanrio, transforms aircraft exteriors, interiors, boarding passes, and even meals into branded experiences. It looks like a novelty. It functions as a marketing engine, driving high load factors on regional Asian routes by turning the flight itself into a destination. That regional strength doesn't generate the majority of EVA's profit, it establishes the brand position and the feeder pattern that supports the lucrative Trans-Pacific operation above it. When EVA markets itself as the seamless, reliable, premium bridge across the Pacific, that message lifts the value of every seat it sells. Most hub carriers cannot replicate EVA Air's model immediately. Geographic positioning presents the first barrier. EVA Air's entire advantage rests on Taipei, sitting at the optimal transit point between North America and Southeast Asia, layered on top of Taiwan's semiconductor output. Cathay can't relocate Hong Kong. Network philosophy presents another barrier. Cathay built its identity, its fleet allocation, and its entire revenue model around consolidation through Hong Kong. Unwinding that would mean dismantling the very thing that made it dominant. The whole point of Hong Kong is to be the gateway to Greater China. Cathay can't abandon mainland feed and call it an improvement. That feed is its crown jewel. Cargo positioning presents a third barrier. EVA Air sits atop the world's most valuable air cargo semiconductors and AI servers. Cathay's cargo leans on e-commerce, structurally lower in value and more exposed to tariff shocks. And the premium product itself took decades to build. EVA invented premium economy in 1992, and it has refined it across 4 generations. That institutional expertise can't be purchased. It must be accumulated. The belief that scale guarantees yield is no longer absolute. Cathay Pacific built an empire on hub consolidation. That consolidation becomes a liability the moment demand softens, and capacity must be discounted to fill. As right-sized widebodies like the 787 and the A350 extend range and efficiency, more direct premium routes become viable. The connections that required Hong Kong yesterday might not require it tomorrow. The race to dominate point-to-point premium flying is accelerating precisely because rivals recognize the competitive implications. A mid-sized carrier doesn't scale volume, it scales influence. This success has not been without its shadows, and any honest account must include them. In June 2019, more than 2,300 EVA Air cabin crew, represented by the Taoyuan Flight Attendants Union, walked out in the longest, costliest strike in Taiwan's aviation history. The action lasted 17 days. Over 1,200 flights were cancelled, disrupting 300,000 passengers and costing an estimated $97 million. EVA's management, shaped by the hardline culture of its maritime parent, responded by suing the union for damages. The legal battle dragged on until April 2025, when Taiwan's Supreme Court rejected EVA's final appeal, ruling the strike legal. The same precision that built the empire also produced a ruthless corporate culture. The cost of quiet dominance was paid, in part, by the people who flew the planes. EVA Air is now scaling aggressively to cement its model. In April 2025, it finalized a firm Airbus order for 18 A350-1000s and 15 A321neos, with deliveries from the first quarter of 2027. The A350-1000 flies up to 9,700 nautical miles and burns 25% less fuel than previous generation aircraft, eventually replacing the aging 777-300ERs. In December 2025, the board approved $1.94 billion for 4 more Boeing 787-9s, pushing the total 787 fleet toward 26 aircraft by 2033. The network is expanding too. On June 26, 2026, EVA launched non-stop flights from Taipei to Washington, D.C., 4 times per week, months after it had launched flights to Dallas-Fort Worth in October 2025. That expands EVA's North American footprint. Profitability can be disproportionate to network size. EVA Air doesn't replace the hub model. Cathay Pacific will definitely not disappear. The Great Connecting Hubs will continue serving the majority of global travelers who want maximum reach. But EVA Air creates something new, a demonstration that for certain premium passengers on certain trans-Pacific routes, the experience is worth paying a premium for.